One other important thing I should discuss with you is the importance of the royal family. King Rama IX is not just the king, he's the head of the armed forces, he's the defender of the faith, not just Buddhism but all faiths. They're very strict about what can be said about the royal family. A couple of years ago an Australian wrote a book criticising them and he was jailed accordingly. So when you go there, make sure that you pay a lot of respect to the royal family, don't say anything inappropriate. Unlike Australians who have that kind of cheeky irreverence for English, British and royal families generally, we want to make sure that when we go there we're respectful. So just remember, pay respects to King Rama IX, and when you enjoy the temples, enjoy them for what they're worth. Every culture's different. Let's get back to Bangkok, shall we? Here we are at the Royal Palace here in Bangkok. We're going to have a look around. When you come here, make sure you dress appropriately. You've got to have long pants, you've got to have, not open shoes, but enclosed shoes. If you don't, they've got clothes you can get changed into. The only problem is it's going to cost you a little bit of money, but more importantly, it takes up to an hour to get changed. So we came dressed appropriately, which is good. So let's go and check out the palace, shall we?
Construction of the palace began in 1782 at the order of King Buddha Chulalongkorn Rama I, who was the founder of the Shakri dynasty, which moved the capital from Thonburi to the current Bangkok. Throughout successive reigns, many new buildings and structures were added, especially during the reign of King Rama V. By 1925, the king, the royal family and the government were no longer permanently settled at the place and moved to other residences.
Okay, so what do we know about the Royal Palace? We know that King Rama I in the 18th century built all these palaces. It's actually a complex of them. What he did was he moved the capital from Thonburi on the other side of the river and moved it into here in Bangkok, and it remained the royal residence until fairly recently. The current royal family actually live in a different location, but this was the royal family for the Ramas 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, lasting up until the current king's grandfather. So let's have a look around the palace, the local temples, as well as some of the government buildings that are here too. Let's keep it going, shall we?
The palace complex is roughly rectangular and has a combined area of over 218,000 square metres. Surrounded by four walls, it is situated on the banks of the Chao Phraya River at the head of an island in the Phra Nakhon district.
Okay, so behind me is the temple of the Royal Buddha. The Royal Buddha was carved from jade in 1434 and originally located in Chiang Rai. It was brought here by the king. Now what happens is 3 times a year they change the clothing on the Buddha. So there's winter, summer, spring, don't know what happened to the 4th season, and the king presides over the change of costume on the Buddha. So remember, 1434 is a fair while ago, carved out of, like say, jade, but also encased in kind of a gold gilded sort of wood type that they call a basabok over here. So let's go and check the actual Buddha itself and see what it looks like.
The Emerald Buddha is a small representation of a seated Buddha made of green jade, not emerald in fact as the name says. It's about 45 centimetres high and housed inside the temple of the Emerald Buddha. The origin of the figure is unknown. It's believed to have been carved in India or Sri Lanka, but has been a source of great argument between Thailand and our neighbouring countries. The statue is particularly sacred and no one can approach it except for the King of Thailand, who, as mentioned, comes 3 times a year to change its costume. Grand Palace is divided into 4 main courts, separated by numerous walls. There's the outer court, the middle court, the inner court, and the Temple of the Emerald Buddha. Each of these courts' functions are clearly defined by laws and traditions. The outer court is situated in the northwest part and is responsible for the royal offices and state ministries. The Temple of the Emerald Buddha, the Royal Chapel, it is the home of the Emerald Buddha itself. The middle court used to house the most important state apartments and ceremonial throne halls of the king, while the inner court, situated at the southern tip of the complex, was reserved only for females as it housed the king's harem.
Okay, so inside here where they keep the Emerald Buddha, there's a whole series of paintings on the wall that depict the battle between Rama and the king of Lanka, who stole Rama's wife Sita. Following the story so far? So they staged this really long war which takes place throughout all the tapestries and paintings throughout not only the main building here but throughout. I'll tell you how it ends, of course. You never steal a man's wife. So King Rama ends up defeating the king of Lanka. He dies, he gets his wife back, and they kind of live happily ever after. Although if you've been married you know how true that is.
Rather than being a single structure, the Grand Palace is made up of numerous buildings, halls, pavilions, and a whole large area of open lawns, gardens and courtyards. It's asymmetrical and its style is due to its slow development in time, with additions and rebuildings being made over 200 years. So leaving the Grand Palace complex, we had our choice of bus to head out. But instead, I thought I'd hit the water and take a water bus and see how we get on.
Okay, so we finished at the palace, so we're on our way to the river. We're going to actually get a boat down the river to the central pier. But as always, you've got to walk through another market and a whole series of stalls, so let's see how we go. Okay, so here we are on the boat. We're heading back from the temple and we're heading back to the central pier. The boat's here only about 14 baht, which is about 50 cents. It'll take you along, enjoy the boat ride. It's not exactly Venice, but it's kind of like an alternative. So let's enjoy the boat ride and see what we can see.
Don't go away, because coming up after the break, we visit Chinatown to check out the markets, the gold and some of the great cuisine down there. So make sure you come back after the break. See you shortly.